Yes. So the word perfect meaning, it is having all the qualities to ensure that it is under equilibrium, it will not deflect, it will not fail. So that's where we call it as a perfect frame. So as have just a revision of what we have learned in previous classes. So what are different types of frames? Perfect frame and imperfect frame. So what is a perfect frame? A simple perfect frame is just a triangle. So triangle simply is considered to be a perfect frame, and it will have three members and it will have three joints. So what is the understanding we get? Whenever the triangle is loaded by some load x, y, z, the shape will not be distorted or the shape will not change its position. Therefore, for a three jointed frame, there should be three members to prevent any sort of distortion. That's what, right? Now, when you are increasing a joint, this is also I said. So if you want to increase one more joint here, you can see if you want to increase one more joint, then what will happen? See, for example, this is the joint. If this joint 4 has to be created, we need at least two members. So that means a joint should have two members to make it a proper frame. Okay, that's why last point you see that for every additional joint to a triangular frame, two members are required. And the number of members, so you might get a doubt. So when you are traveling on a road, you will come across a truss, you will come across a perfect frame. Frame is also called as a pin jointed plane frame. What is it called as? Pin jointed frame. I'm writing it here. Perfect frame. Under this we have truss or pin jointed frame. So the name itself says that each joint is considered to be a pinned joint. Each joint. So see here, this is joint A, joint B, joint C. All the joints are considered as pinned. That means it will have the kind of corresponding deformations wherever or whenever it is subjected to a load. Okay. Now, how many members are there in a perfect frame? So to get that, we have the expression that is called as 2j minus 3. So very, very important one this is. That is m is equal to 2j minus 3. So this will let us know the number of members in a truss, where j is the joint and 3 is the three known equilibrium reactions. So which means, so this joint has got the multiplication factor 2 because each joint, I'm showing it here, see here, each joint has got x side and y side deformation. So simple logic. So let me take a pen and try to see how it works out. So let me, so this is a triangular truss. You can see that it is standing on my hand. Now the tendency of this truss is at the top portion. One second. At the top portion, you have that yes. So you can, yeah, you can see my video here. At the top portion, when there is a joint, you take any joint. So it will move up or it will move horizontally. It can move up or it can move horizontally. So because it can move up and horizontally, what will happen? It will lead to deformation in x direction as well as y direction. So that is why 2j minus 3. That is why it is called as 2j minus 3. Okay, clear. Now, then we have the next topic that is called as imperfect frame. So how do we define it? An imperfect frame is that does not satisfy m or n is equal to 2j minus 3. M or N is equal to 2j minus 3, or in other words, it is the frame. This is the definition you need to write, important definition. So it is a frame in which number of members are more than or less than 2j minus 3. So for example, you have a triangle. Let me take the example of a triangle only here. Okay, so how many joints are there? So j is equal to 3, isn't it? Joint 1, joint 2 and joint 3. Now what is the formula here? M is equal to 2j minus 3, that is equal to 2 into 3 minus 3, that is equal to 3, isn't it? A triangle will have 3 members, the 3 joints. Okay. Now if the number of members are more than or less than 2j minus 3, then it is called as imperfect frame, isn't it? So always your M should match with the 2j minus 3. If it is greater, then it is called as imperfect frame. Now this imperfect frame can also be further classified into two categories. One is deficient frame, one is redundant frame. Redundant. So that word you need to remember. So whenever you are trying to talk about redundant means it's not applicable, or you can simply say redundant means. First we'll talk about the deficient part. Yeah, so let us see the deficient part. So deficient frame, a deficient frame is an imperfect frame in which m is less than 2j minus 3. M is less than 2j minus 3. Now a redundant frame is an imperfect frame in which number of members are more than 2j minus 3, m greater than 2j minus 3. What do you mean by redundant? Redundant means it's not required or no longer needed. Not required or no longer needed. So any additional member that is there in the analysis, we have to try to remove that member because it is greater and then solve the problem. So this is a standard condition to understand the overall behavior of a pin jointed frame. Okay, so what all we have? We have perfect frame. I'll just write it here. So we have perfect frame which says that m is equal to 2j minus 3, and then we have imperfect frame. What do we have? Imperfect frame. So then we have imperfect frame. So here m can be less than or greater than 2j minus 3. Okay, and under this we have two more categories. So what are those two more categories we are talking about? The deficient frame and the redundant frame. So deficient, here it says m less than 2j minus 3, and redundant will be m greater than 2j minus 3. So these concepts are actually very important to be considered for your exam point of view also. Very important concepts. So depending upon whether the frame is perfect, deficient or redundant, we will carry out the analysis. So these definitions are very important. Now, in a pin jointed frame, how do we calculate the stresses? So how do we calculate the stresses? So when you're talking about the calculation of the stresses, so what is important there? In every member, we have a tensile stress or a compressive stress. Of course, bending will not be there here as of now. So we are talking about pin joint, right? So I'm again repeating here. So pin means it will look like this. Okay, this is a pin, and for this m is equal to 0. So for any pin, moment will be equal to 0. Okay, now let us see. So somebody will ask you, how do you define a stress? So the answer should not be stress is equal to load divided by area. No, definitely not. You should say this is a proper definition of a stress. When a body is acted upon by a force, the internal force which is transmitted through the body is known as stress. If an individual is able to answer like this, it will be a very good understanding that you will get overall. So what is a stress? It's an internal force which is transmitted through the body, and that's how we need to define. And the stresses can be classified as the tensile stresses and the compressive stresses. Okay. So sometimes these tensile and compressive stresses can be pulled up also or on opposite sides. Okay. Now see here, this is being stretched and this is being compressed. Okay, so always the compressive stress will try to reduce the length of the object or the body, and the tensile stress will try to elongate the body. That's how, or it will extend. Okay, that's how we. So the entire truss or a perfect frame will be subjected to either compressive stresses or tensile stresses. So in order to, so what do we need to do here? We need to analyze the truss or a perfect frame subjected to horizontal load, vertical load, inclined load. So what do you mean by analysis? Is to calculate the forces in all the members of the frame. The forces in all the members of the frame. That is what we need to calculate. So now considering that specific scenario, what are the assumptions before trying to take the problem further? Okay. Now, uh, so let us try to see what are the assumptions for the calculation of forces in the members of a truss or a perfect frame. So the first one is that all the members are pin jointed. All the members are pin jointed. So there won't be any fixed, there won't be any rigid, and there won't be any roller also. Of course, roller to some extent at one end as a support, but all the joints are pin jointed. And another important point is the frame is loaded only at the joint. The frame is loaded only at the joint. Now, this is a very interesting criteria here. If you can see me, if you can see me here, I'm just trying to hold a triangular shaped thing for a better explanation to all of you. If you can see that, so I'm holding a kind of a pen in my video. So then, yeah. So yeah, one second. You can see that here. So this is a kind of uh, support that we have, or the condition of a truss. See, the load actually will try to act only at the junction of a member, only at the junction of a member. So what does that mean? When we are talking about the joint, each joint is subjected to load. So why only it is mentioned as only joint? Why not on the member? I'll try to consider that. I'll try to explain that. So when you take a frame, perfect frame, especially the truss kind of a member, what will happen is that whenever, how does this force act? Will a vehicle pass on a truss? No, definitely not. A vehicle will not pass on the truss. A vehicle will pass on a platform. So whenever we are talking about a vehicle moving on a bridge or an industrial shed constructed with the help of a truss, the joint of a truss is subjected to some sort of atmospheric condition, like the environmental related load, the atmospheric load, and all the forces. Like if you take example of a bridge, simple example, when a vehicle is passing and you will have a truss connected to that, so these forces will transfer the vehicle load that is moving on a road, will transfer that force to the joint of a truss. I will show it to you in an image in just 5 more minutes time. I'll just give a practical example of how this load transfer will happen. And one more important thing in this regard is that the pin jointed frames can never, the pin jointed frames can never be considered to have the bending type of stresses. So which means that the the joints or the members of a truss are subjected to only tensile or compressive. The reason being, this is the reason. So why it is subjected to only tension and compression stresses? Because the joints are pin jointed. The moment we say a pin joint, either it is subjected to elongation or contraction, but it cannot bend, because pin joints doesn't have any moment when the joints are connected together. So that is the reason why we have to consider the tensile stresses and compressive stresses only while solving a truss. And the next understanding is the frame is a perfect one. So if you want to analyze this frame, you have to analyze it only for a perfect condition. So you cannot do it for an imperfect condition, or you cannot use it for a the cases of imperfect condition like deficient or the redundant cases. Okay. Now the weight of the member, so whatever the truss member we are trying to consider, so the weight of the member, unless it is given, it is considered to be negligible. It is considered to be negligible. And one more thing, when we are talking about the tension and the compression parts of the stresses being developed, where is the load occurring? You see here, this is the, okay, this is the truss. So load is acting at the joint. If the load is acting at this joint, why will this member bend? It will not bend, no. For a member to bend, what will happen? The load should act on the member for it to bend. But in the case of a truss, what's happening? It is acting at the joint. So imagine a case where if this load is acting here, this will transfer the force to these members either in a tension way or a compression way. That is the one more reason why we have only the tension and compression stresses. Okay. So the weight of the member is always ignored unless otherwise specified, and it is ignored because the weight is less than the force acting at the joint. Okay. Now these are the four assumptions that are very important to be considered for the analysis of a perfect frame or a truss. Now, so how do we analyze a truss member? A truss member can be analyzed with the help of three methods, in fact, two methods. One is the analytical method and the other one is the graphical method. Analytical method or graphical method. So here in this corresponding chapter, we are trying to talk about the analytical methods. And in analytical methods, we have three different types of methods. Of course, the two are mentioned here to analyze the frame. That is method of joints, and the second one is method of sections. And the third one is tension coefficient method. Third one is tension coefficient method. So this method is almost close to method of joints. So if you understand method of joints, it becomes easy for us to understand the tension coefficient method. So once again, I'm repeating the assumptions made in for the analysis of frames, for the analysis of a pin jointed frame are four. All the members are pin jointed. Loads will only act at the joint. The frame should be a perfect one. The weight of the member is negligible compared to the load. And in order to analyze the pin jointed frame, we have got three methods: method of joints, method of sections, and tension coefficient method. And tension coefficient method is similar to method of joints. Okay, so this is how we try to take and analyze, try to take a frame and analyze it. Now let me explain you in brief about the two methods, that is method of joints as well as method of sections. It's a very simple method. We need not, worry. It's all about, if you know engineering mechanics, and that too only one topic, that is equilibrium condition. We already know this equilibrium condition. So this entire concept of method of joints and method of sections will work purely based on equilibrium conditions. So what are the equilibrium conditions? Sigma fx0, sigma Fy0, sigma Mz0. So there can be a moment that is acting at the joint which would be equal to 0, correct na? Pin jointed frame, which means that at a joint the moment will be equal to 0. So we can use the third condition also. Now let us, all of you please see carefully. Definitely you'll be getting a problem in the mid and in problem in the external exam, method of joints. So in this method, each and every joint is treated as a free body in equilibrium. What is that? Each and every joint is considered as a free body in equilibrium. All the joints are in equilibrium. You can see that this is a triangular truss, and joint 1, you can see here we have resolved into two components. What is happening here? Because there is a load acting at this point, this load is transferring it to this joint in the form of compression, in the form of compression from 3 to 1, and from 1 the load is again transferred to 2 in the form of tension. Now here the question is, why this is considered to be only in compression, why not it be tension? See, it all depends upon where exactly the load is acting and how the load is being transferred. That is how we need to remember. So if at all, if we are trying to talk about saying that, if we are considering that load transfer from 3 to 1, if it is 3 to 1, then compression. If it is 1 to 3, if it is 1 to 3, then it is tension. So in what direction you are moving is something that is important to analyze this problem. I hope it is clear, right? Now the unknown forces are determined. So we don't know the force in this member. So we have this member as 1, this is member 2, and this is member 3. So as of now, we don't know how to calculate, we don't know the how much force that is acting upon these members. So these are called the unknown forces. And how they are determined? They are determined by sigma V0, sigma H0. So sum of all the vertical forces and horizontal forces is equated to 0, and then we will get the clear picture of forces in all the members of a truss. Okay, so this is how we try to solve the problem for method of joints. So mostly we will solve problems in the coming classes, and then you will get a very clear understanding of how to analyze a perfect frame using method of joints. And the next one is method of sections. So this is convenient when the forces in the few members of a frame are required to be found out. I'll give an example. So you see here, this is one triangle, and I am putting one more triangle, and I'm putting one more triangle. So how many members are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 members are there. So if I wanted to calculate forces in all the members, if I want to calculate forces in all the members, then I will use method of joints. Forces in all members. But when it comes to the method of sections, if I want to calculate forces only in the member 4, 5 and 6 alone, then method of sections is very easy, in which the forces are to be calculated. So in this method, a section line is passed. A section line is passed through the member in which forces are to be calculated. And a part of the structure on any side of the section line is treated as a free body in equilibrium under action of external forces. I'll show it in the image. You can see here, for example, if I wanted to calculate the member in the forces in the member BC, what I'm trying to do, I am cutting the section here. Anywhere I can cut. So when I cut the section, you can see this is one part, left part, and this is right part. So what do we need to do? Take the left part, apply equilibrium condition sigma Fh, sigma Fv, and sigma m, and take the right part, and again using the sigma m concept in right part, we will get the forces. So theoretically, if you see, it might be looking somewhat challenging initially, but when we enter into the problem, that's where you will get the clarity on how we try to resolve it. Okay, so that is how we generally analyze a perfect frame for getting the forces of the members using method of joints, method of sections. Once again, I'm repeating, in method of joints, start with one joint and finish off all the joints by calculating the members, forces in the members using equations of equilibrium. In the method of sections, we will try to consider, in the method of sections, we will try to consider the the portion associated with the member where we need to calculate the force. So that portion will be cut, and the left part and the right part will be under equilibrium, and accordingly we will try to take that. Okay, so depending upon this specific behavior, we will get the forces in all the members of the truss. Okay, to be precise, anyways, I'll be solving it on the board from next class. But as an example for you to understand, I have put one truss in front of you to get the clarity of how we are using method of joints. Okay, so tomorrow's class I'll be explaining it in detail. So as such, if somebody has any doubts in today's class, you can ask me. Otherwise, we will continue in the next class. Thank you all.